Hey, what's up? And welcome to the Loaf. This is our first real official episode, not a short little dinky one. So welcome. And today I thought, what's a better topic to start with to start off a yap podcast than just letting y'all know that I don't know anything. I know nothing. And I would reckon to say that I don't think anybody does. And it's something I feel like once you kind of hit adulthood, you look around and all of a sudden you look at your parents and you go, wait, you don't know anything? And they're like, no. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. Cool. So we're all in this together and we don't know anything, right? And now that might not bode well in your confidence for me. However, let's just get this out there right now. This is not a podcast where I'm going to be telling you exactly what to do and how to do it. And I think that there are a lot of Christian podcasts out there that take a very straightforward approach to telling you what you should be doing. And this is not going to be one of those. I am not a pastor. I am not a theologian. And I think it makes a lot of sense for people who are very, very well versed in theology to come to the internet and talk about stuff. And I think I mentioned this in our first little intro episode, but I feel like there's a decommunification of the world, aka that's a fake word. I feel like we don't have much community in the real world. Churches are some of the only places where I think that we can still go in the physical space to have community. And even then, I know a lot of churches around me, I don't feel the community as strong as I once did, which I think is really sad. And I think a lot of community has gone onto the internet, which again, not ideal, not something that I love, but I think if we I think that we should pull away. However, if everybody who didn't like the internet left the internet, and if a bunch of good people who are on the internet left the internet would be terrible. And also with all of the decentralization, I guess, of physical community, a lot of people are going to the internet because there are structures there to meet people and to learn and to have community on the internet. And until we rebuild community in the physical world, we really don't have an option, because I think it would be very unhealthy if internet goes away. Okay, I'm no longer on the internet. Well, there's not many structures set up anymore in the physical world to be really well connected outside of the internet. This is such a long tangent, but what else is a Yap podcast for? Anyway, all that being said, is I feel like a lot of people are on the internet. Everybody's on the internet these days. And a lot of people who are speaking on the internet are one of two things: experts or people who pretend to be experts. I think it's very easy to sound like an expert on the internet. I mean, you can Google, you can AI a topic. Please don't use AI. I am the biggest hater of AI, but that's not what we're talking about today. You could Google and get an AI summary about some deep theological question or anything else in the world, and then go on to make videos on the internet and sound like a professional and sound like an expert. And I think it's very easy to get a good superficial knowledge of something, but experiential knowledge and wisdom is going away, and that really true deep knowledge of a subject is also going away, because I can go and read somebody's life work researching microbacteria in your gut, and I can read a book and I can read AI summaries about that, but I will never fully understand it as well as the person who wrote the book, because that person has a uniquely intense experience learning about that, going through the trials of figuring it out. And that type of wisdom can't be replaced, even if I do read a book or read AI. The problem is that I feel like the internet really rewards people who have certainty, and it feels like everybody is an expert in everything and everybody is certain. Here's how you lose weight. Here's how to get a six pack. Here's the best nutrition for you. Here's the best skincare for you. Here's exactly what you should do if you want to grow closer to God. And I think while there's a lot of wisdom tucked away in those videos, and this is hypocritical because, like, look at me right now. Well, actually, you can't look at me, but you can listen to me right now. But there's this desire to be an expert, and the algorithm and the internet rewards you for being incredibly certain in your beliefs and being very passionate about that. I mean, just think about rage baiting or people who go viral. It's a lot of times very passionate and certain people. And while I think certainty and passion are not bad things on their own, to be passionately certain about absolutely everything is kind of, and not even kind of, I feel like it's a very dangerous thing to do. There are very few things I am fully certain about in my life, and even those certainties came after a long time of feeling a little bit uncertain. And even now, I can't say that I believe anything, even certainly, that I have not doubted before in the past, or continue to sometimes have moments of doubt. Yes, even my faith, there are moments where I'm like, how do I even know this is real? And I can sometimes feel the presence of God, and I know in moments of prayer, I'm like, okay, this is real. But that doesn't mean 10 minutes later I might be going through something really hard and being like, how do I even know this is real? How does this even make sense? And I don't think that that makes me any less or worse of a Christian. I don't think it makes my faith any less real. In fact, I almost think it makes it more real, because if we're being so for real, everybody has moments of doubt. If you're going to tell me that you've never doubted in your entire life, I'm going to say you're probably not being truthful. And not because I know you better or anything like that. Just, it's natural. All that to be said is that I think that we are in a society right now that is really putting a lot of emphasis on certainty. And I see that come through in Christianity. You know, we live in a world where information is so prevalent. It is so easy to know the correct answer. You know, you're in a conversation with somebody and you're like, hey, what is the chemical makeup of this? And you're like, I don't know. And then somebody can just Google it right there and all of a sudden have an answer. And so we are very comfortable with knowing things, but we're not so comfortable with not knowing. And I believe that not knowing is fundamental to the Christian faith. Like, if we knew everything, we wouldn't need God. I mean, we still would. See, sometimes I'm going to be saying things and I'm going to be wrestling and muddling through things because I think that's also important. We would still need him even if we knew everything, because we couldn't do everything. But we don't know everything. And if we did, I don't think that would be very good. And all of this is coming from the point when I'm saying, hey, I'm going to be talking and I'm going to say, hey, I don't know. I don't think I was given the gift of preaching or teaching. I'm going to be so honest. I've had so many pastors be like, hey, you don't know what to do? Go read your Bible. You want to know more about God? Go read your Bible. And I read the Bible and I said, I don't know what this is saying. Like, I would get to the end of a passage and say, I don't know what that was about. I don't know what I'm trying to get from this. And so, and you might be looking at me like, girl, why would I ever listen to a podcast from a girl who doesn't get it? Because I don't think anybody gets it. And I'm not trying to fill a space of we need more people trying to explain what passages mean. There are so many amazing theologians and pastors who break down Bible passages in a way and are going to start talking about Greek and historical context. That's not really what I'm trying to be. I'm your Christian bestie, hopefully. Hey, you want to be my best friend? I'm lonely. But I just want to talk I want to talk like I'm your friend who's also Christian, and we can talk things out and wrestle with things. And yeah, I don't know if I'll have perfectly, well, I know for a fact I won't have perfectly formulated sentences or structures or anything like that. But I think bringing a little bit of reality and a little bit of messiness, and have somebody that you can talk to that doesn't feel like I'm constantly trying to teach or preach to you. This is, I'm not trying to gossip or anything, but I knew a girl and I met her at church and I wanted to be friends with her. And there was moments when we would meet up a lot. In my mind, I was like, let's hang out, let's be friends. And it kind of became apparent to me that she didn't really understand what it meant to like hang out and be friends and have a connection with somebody, because every single time we talked, it would end up to her kind of preaching to me and trying to like spread the gospel, which is great. But I was already Christian, and it just kind of felt like we couldn't be friends because she was constantly trying to teach to me, you know, tell me what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong, what I should be doing. And I think, again, while that's wonderful and great, there is another side to being friends with people, that and talking and living life as a Christian that doesn't necessarily have to sound like we are reading from a Bible study hand guide book the whole time. And again, I'm not trying to say this to like be rude or mean. I just wish that I had a little bit more casual of a place to be Christian with other fellow Christians, instead of feeling like I'm kind of being tested the whole time. And I think I've always had a difficult relationship with church because I've always felt deeply uncomfortable at a lot of churches. Like, I'm never Christian enough to be accepted there. And yeah, I haven't had great experiences with churches, but the current church that I go to, one of the reasons why I loved it is because I went to a Bible study and somebody asked a question, and the man who was leading was like, I don't know. And that just felt so real, to have somebody who was like a little messy teaching. Like, yes, they knew their things, they had good guides, and we were definitely learning and ruminating over tough questions, but it was a little messy, and he didn't always have the right things, and sometimes his like metaphors and examples were all over the place, which I loved. But going there and having somebody in the church be like, I actually don't know. And partly, he said it multiple times, since some of it might be like, oh, I don't know what that word technically translates to, I can look it up later. Or also just, hey, I don't know, and I don't know if we're meant to know the answer to this question, but let's talk about it, let's discuss it. And he even said something, he was like, we don't have to agree. We never have to get to a point where we fully agree on this, you know, I've heard people call it like a secondary topic or something, or like a non-salvation based thing, where it's like, it's not impacting the core of the faith. It's just something, it like, somebody the other day was like, did the Israelites like catch the manna from the sky, or did they eat it off the ground? You know, something like that. But, you know, maybe a little bit more important, although I don't know. What do you think? I always just imagined that they picked it up off of the ground. I don't know. You know, you can dust off the sand. I didn't think. I don't know. What do you think? What do you? I would love to taste some manna. That was what that stuttering was for. I was like, did you ever just like, when I figured out, I was like, oh, it's like food. I was like, I wonder what that tastes like. I bet it tastes pretty good. I always thought it was like cereal. Like, that's how I pictured it in my head. But I don't know. Anyway. Yeah, I just think that there's a balance between being certain in your faith and being knowledgeable, and being a little bit arrogant in your faith. And I try not to ever steer into the I know arrogance side, and just kind of be like, I can be very certain about certain things, but I don't Sorry, I got distracted by the fact that I said certain about certain things, and then I lost my train of thought. Um, I think that there's something about holding humbly to the truth that you know, and not taking that pridefully as you understand everything. And I do fear that as a Christian, I am somebody who's very comfortable with not knowing. And I think that's just the way that I'm made, is the fact that if somebody asks me, oh, well, was Earth created in 7 days literally, or is that metaphorical? Are the days 24-hour days or whatever? And I know a lot of people will debate that topic, and a lot of people hold very firmly to whatever that is, whatever side of that debate that they hold on to. And perhaps my problem as a Christian is I say, I really don't care, because I really don't think it matters whether it's 7 days or 7 billion and it's a whatever day is something different. I just don't really think that impacts at least my faith. And I'm sure, it means different things theologically, but for me, I just don't care. Oh, that sounds bad. Not that I don't care about my faith, but just, it's kind of like I read C.S. Lewis's Mere Christianity, because I know that that is a very formative book for so many people, and it was well written, and I thought his arguments and the things he talked about were very interesting. But I remember getting to the end of the book and just being like, I just don't think that that was written for me, because a lot of the arguments that he was making and a lot of the things that he was, oh, somebody's hammering. Interesting. Okay, well, that's fun. Anyway, a lot of the things that he was talking about, I just weren't things that I'd ever even thought about. Like, there's one part of the book where he's talking about how can God listen to all of us at the same time? How can God hear all of our thoughts all at once? Because there's a lot of us, and we're all thinking a lot of things all the time. And C.S. Lewis was saying that it was like a book. Like, an author can write a book, close the book, walk away, and then come back later, open up the book, and continue writing exactly where he picked up. So time would change for the author's perspective, but the characters in the book, their time wouldn't shift. And he was like, so it's totally possible that God can do that. And I remember being like, well, that's kind of fun. That's kind of interesting. That's a fun little theory. And I was like, but I have never once ever considered, how can God read all of our minds all at once? I'm like, I don't know. He's God. I just kind of assumed that that would be kind of easy for him. I mean, if he made all of us, knows how many hairs we have on our head, I'm just kind of assuming that, like, yeah, he can listen to all of us. And I'm just assuming that's just something that he can do. And so perhaps, and not even perhaps, I know for a fact, my purpose in this world is not the same as C.S. Lewis's. Or anybody else's for that matter. And so that is not something that that it's not a hole that I'm supposed to fill necessarily, answering questions like that, because my answer would be to shrug my shoulders and say, well, I don't know, which I totally understand is not helpful to a lot of people. And again, it's not because I don't care. It's not because I don't want to learn more about my faith. And I do think it is important, I heard somebody say, like, if you love somebody, you want to know more about them. And so, yeah, if I love God, of course I want to know more about him. But things like that, I don't know. I just kind of feel like, I don't know. Okay, so apparently, my bad. There are people on my roof right now. Had no idea. So I had to pause for a second to figure out why there was banging. But yeah, there's people on my roof right now. So my bad. Anyway, I do have a script for this. As you can tell, I'm just kind of a yapper and I got very off script. But basically, this is a podcast of me saying, hey, don't listen to me as a teacher. I'm a friend. I am somebody to do community with. But I'm not smart enough to be somebody who is a great teacher. But I've just felt very lonely recently, especially I feel like a lot of my Christian friends don't fully understand art, and I feel like a lot of my art friends are not Christian, and it's can get a little just lonely. and I wanted community. And am I the best person to create community? No. There are a lot of people who are better than me, who know better than me, who are better artists than me, who can talk better. But at some point in my life, I have to say, if there's something I want to exist, I have to take the initiative and I have to do it, because on a practical side, I can't expect other people to have my own thoughts and to magically do the things that I think of in the way that I want them to be done for me. That's a little lazy. And I have had that thought a lot of times. Like, I wish somebody would just make this musical so I can go and see it and have this plot and have these characters and do all of this. And how can I expect somebody else to have my own thoughts and do it? They're my thoughts. I have to do them. On a Christian perspective side, if God is gifting me with an idea, then that is a gift and he expects me to use it. And I feel sometimes conflicted about saying things like that, because I have a lot of thoughts and I'm pretty sure a lot of them are not from God, just based on the content of them. However, that makes me sound crazy. I promise. It's just like little bouts of road rage when somebody cuts me off. But I get worried when I openly attribute something to God, because I'm like, what if this podcast is actually a mess and I make a fool of myself? And even worse, like, what if I make a fool of God? Which, like, I know, God, I pray that you show this to nobody if I will make a fool of you. But what was I saying? Oh no, this is not boding well for me. If I got it, I caught the thought. If God is giving me a thought, an idea, an artistic vision, it's a gift, and God wants us to use our gifts. And so if I'm taking every bit of inspiration, every idea I have as a gift from God, if somebody gives me a gift, I use it. So I should be using these things that he is gifting me with. So here I am, even though I'm not the person who should be here, hence ramble yap. But hopefully you're like doing dishes right now and you're being very productive, or you're working on art, and this is I can't imagine how this would be motivating you, but maybe it's motivating you. So the power of I don't know and not knowing. From an artist's perspective, I don't know anything that's happening to me ever. I don't know what my future holds. And I feel like sometimes that's even more prevalent in an artist's life, because I don't have a 9 to 5. I have no idea where my next job is coming from. I just lost a performance job. It wasn't a super steady job, but it was steadier than most of the gigs I get, because most gigs are one-time gigs, and I just lost a reoccurring job. They just canceled all of the performers and are going in a new direction, and that's terrifying. I have no idea where my next paycheck's coming from, where my next job is, and as an artist, I think you're just kind of asked to exist in that realm where friends who have 9 to 5s know that they go to work from 9 to 5 and know when their paycheck comes. And so I think obviously nobody has any idea of what's happening or what will happen tomorrow except for God. Artists, I think it just feels a little bit heightened in the fact that we have nothing to hold on to, which is terrifying, but also something that I think I kind of deep down do like. I think if you put me in a 9 to 5 where I knew what was going to happen every day, I might panic even more. But it doesn't mean that not knowing what's going to happen artistically, practically, financially is helpful. And so I think artists are constantly kind of asked to be in this state of I don't know, which can sometimes honestly make being a Christian hard, because it's another thing of like, I don't know. The world is so big, the universe is so big, and I understand so little that sometimes, and I'm just gonna be fully honest, like sometimes the more worldly systems of example, like my TikTok is full of like manifesting. It almost is so tempting because it feels like it would put me in control. It feels like I could know something, where sometimes I'm kind of like, God, can you just tell me? And God's like, hey, no, that's not how this works. And I'm like, I know, but I'm so tired of not knowing. But I think there's also so much beauty in not knowing. And it's that kind of toggle where sometimes I'm like, yeah, we don't have to know. I'm comfortable with not knowing. And other times I'm like, could I please understand anything? I'd like a little bit of understanding about absolutely anything in the world, because right now all of it is confusing to me and I know so little and nothing. But I think the comfort comes from knowing I have a relationship with Jesus and he does know, which is comforting. And even when I talk and try to mentor younger artists or performers, they'll say like, how do you deal with it, with the uncertainty? And I always am honest. I'm like, I got God, and without him, genuinely, I don't know. And it's a question I haven't actually posed to any of my artist friends who aren't religious. But I'm like, how do you deal with so much uncertainty? And I think the truth is a lot of people don't. I think it's a how could you survive like that? Because I think deep down they're not. I mean, don't get me wrong. Yes, they're surviving, but I think it weighs heavily on a lot of people. And I know when I talk to my friends in the art world, it is a heavy sense of I don't know what's coming next. I'm stressed about money. I'm stressed about my future. I want to make something of my life, but also, what if that never happens? I think it's a very, very real thing that a lot of artists are dealing with. I mean, if I'm dealing with it and I have the Lord of all creation on my side, I know somebody who feels alone in the universe is also dealing with it tenfold. And so it's something that I keep in mind, especially when I'm with my non-Christian art friends, is that uncertainty is paralyzing, even for me. I've been going through it a lot recently, very scared about my future. And there's so much power and beauty in I don't know, but there's also a lot of fear in it. And yeah, I guess in that moment of like, I know nothing, God is the only thing that I can cling to. And that has to be enough. And that has to be it. I mean, he has to be it, because if you've ever been in a position where you're like, I literally have nothing, my intelligence is gone, my wisdom is gone, everything I've built in my life is gone, I have nothing but him. Until you're really in like that vacuum, it's hard to feel. And I feel like artists, we like to feel. Okay, we're sappy emotional, we love the feelings. And so feeling that is something that I always cling to in my own faith, is that feeling of like, I have felt very close to rock bottom or very close to absolutely alone, but I've never had to feel that fully, because in that I am an inch away from rock bottom. I am in the vacuum, in the void, alone. God is always right there. And that's honestly when you can feel and hear him most profoundly, at least for me. And listen, I'm not saying, hey, go search for rock bottom just to feel this. But if you ever find yourself there, it makes it super profound, because it is the only thing, God's presence is the only thing I have holding me back from insanity. So yeah, that was a complete tangent. I didn't really expect to go on, but I think it's something that I've been feeling quite potently recently. But I also think there's something about art that we kind of like the mystery. And I think that there's so much mystery in the creation of art. I don't know if you've ever like tried to write a book and there's a little part of you that's like, I don't really know what's going to happen next. I don't know what these characters are going to do. Yes, I'm writing the book, but have you ever had like a character just like do something that you're like, that's not what I wanted you to do? Or you have paint and you're you're making a painting. I'm not a painter, but like your hand does something different and there's a new stroke on the canvas and you're like, that's not what I told you. That's not what I thought you were going to do. But now we're here. And I think that's one of my favorite parts, is that serendipity maybe, or just that feeling of like, that's not what I thought was going to happen. And so it always makes the creation process kind of feel like we're discovering what's coming next, and like we don't really know where it's going to take us. And hearing this, I'm like, that's my favorite part about art. And then I try to apply it and I'm like, oh wait, is that what I'm supposed to be doing with my life? Being like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen next, but that's my favorite part. But it's so much harder to do in life. Like, oh, I wonder what my character in my novel is going to do next. It's so much more fun than I don't know where my next paycheck is coming from. But there's lessons to be learned through art. Perhaps that's one of them. Will I be good at trying to apply that to my life? We'll see. But yeah, who am I kidding? No, I'm gonna be stressed out about my life for the rest of my life. I do fear, but it's a nice thought to think about how the mystery in art and not knowing can very much reflect the pathing of our lives and in our faith and our journey. I made a note in my notes, my script. It just says, I love astronomy. And I think for me, astronomy is one of those things that just, when I look at it, it's so clear that God is an artist. It's beautiful. And when you think about the vacuum of space, it's a vacuum. There's nothing. And then God created just the most beautiful things I've probably ever seen, of the nebula and the stars and the galaxies and planets. And each one is so unique. And I mean, there's like a planet out there that's like a whole diamond. There's one that's like half frozen, half lava pool. There are ones, I mean, even just from like Jupiter is a giant gas giant with a thunderstorm that's been going for like thousands of years, to Earth, to Mars with its red sand, to Pluto, it's rocky and icy and so far away, and how they all dance together in orbit, and the sounds that you can hear in space and the music of space. Like, it is, I think, a depiction of every form of art that we have on Earth, just in a cosmic scale. And I've always loved astronomy since I was a kid. I used to lay on my bed and try to think of infinity after learning that space was infinite. And perhaps that's why I love things that I can't comprehend a little bit, and why I have such a passion for not understanding. Because when you look at how big the universe is, or when you think about the scale of, this is 3 million light years away, and a light year is how fast light travels in a year, and light is the fastest thing on the earth, so we don't even perceive that it has to travel, because that's how fast it is. And then you start hearing about things that are millions of light years away, and you go, oh my goodness, this is huge. I cannot possibly begin to comprehend that space and that size. Even like the space from us to Pluto, I can't comprehend it. There's a place, I think it's like in Maine or something, where it's like a highway, and they have little replicas of the planets on the side of the highway. And it's like, if this is how big the sun is, then, and then it's like 10 miles down the highway, it's like, this is how far it would be from Mercury. And I don't know how actually long it is, but it's probably like I'm just gonna lie, but it's like a 50-mile stretch on the highway or some distance like that. And that's just like a scale replica. Like, I can't comprehend it. And again, sometimes I like to just sit there and try to think about it, and it literally makes your brain like go fuzzy a little bit, like short circuit. And the fact is, like, I cannot comprehend how small I am, how big this is. And this is not a monumental new thought that somebody's just had. We've been thinking, man, space is big for like a very long time. But there's something, again, just about that. I will never be able to comprehend any of this. And there's a beauty in that. And it's so easy to say when I'm talking through metaphors and space and art. It's so hard to actually feel that about my own life. And maybe that's just the lesson that I think about for today. You want advice on how to implement that into your life? I don't have it, but maybe you do. But yeah, we're just rearranging and discovering things that God made in an instant. And we can't comprehend any of it. And honestly, I think that's really, really cool. And so basically, in conclusion, I know nothing. And you probably don't know anything either, and that's not insulting you. But I don't think that the most famous pastors in the world, I mean, yes, they know things and they're very good at what they do and sermons and teaching, but like, they don't know anything either. And I think that there is a great beauty in that. So is this podcast topic me setting your expectations low for how wise I am? Yes. But it's also I don't know what it is also. I just think it's so crazy how we have been around, humans have been around for a while, and we know so little, and that we will never be able to know everything. But yet we still pursue it. We still want to know what happens next. We still want to understand everything that we can. And I do think that this would be a good place to maybe pause and stop before I word salad and lose all meaning. In conclusion, I am not a teacher. I am not a theologian. If anybody out there is, would love to hear and would love to learn. But I want this podcast to be a place where Christians and Christian artists have a place, and artists feel like they have a place where we can just discuss messily, be thoughtful, have questions, and kind of wrestle through topics together. Yeah, I think that's it for now. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you want to come and messily wrestle through things with me, you can, I don't know, I think like subscribe or like or comment. How do you do this? I'm kidding. I do know how to do this, but man, that feels really weird to say. But on that note, I will see you guys in the next episode.